Okay, very good evening, my dear friends. Regarding of our PG entrance online free coaching, today's our resource person, Dr. P. Manjula, Madam Garu, Assistant Professor, Department of Botany, Usmania University, Hyderabad. Madam has huge experience in the field of plant sciences, especially ecology and biodiversity. Madam has taken the classes rigorously for our CPGET young aspirants from 2021. In this regard, we would like to invite Dr. P. Manjula Madam Garu. Please welcome and start your session. Please welcome, Madam.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, good evening, dear candidates. So, today's topic is ecological adaptations of plants. So, adaptations, first topic that is, so first we will discuss about the adaptation. So, adaptation means, anyone? Adaptation.
మిత్రమా రెస్పాండ్ కావాలి. అడాప్టేషన్ అంటే ఏంటని మేడం అడిగారు. మీకు తెలిసింది ఏదైనా ఉంటే చెప్పాలి.
Okay, so adaptation means that is to adjust to the particular environment. So here adaptation means that any feature of the organism or its part which is enables it to exist under the conditions of its habitat. So eppadaithe plants ani animals when they are growing in particular area, so they can adjust to that environment. So it is called as the Hello. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, sorry. So here any that is the adjustment to the particular environment here. Okay. So adaptations means, so here the organisms, so when they are growing in a particular area, so they can adapt or adjust to that particular environment. So it is called as a adaptation. So here any feature of the organism are its parts. So here the any, for example, in the plants, here the adjustment in the leaf structure like that. So here any part which enables it to exist under the conditions of its habitat, it is called as the adaptation. So adaptation is here adaptations, it may be mainly here these adaptations are mainly for to withstand the adverse conditions of the environment. So here they are and pratikula paristhitullo. So here when organisms are living in particular environment, so pratikula environment, that is adverse conditions, to withstand that adverse conditions are to utilize the maximum benefits of the environment. So generally benefits means that is for the nutrients and also for the space like that. So here for this purpose, so here mainly in the organism, so here adaptations may be taking place mainly for the to withstand the adverse conditions, that is pratikula paristhitulani tattukodaniki. So another one is to get maximum benefit, mainly to get the nutrition, more amount of nutrients, food or space like that. So here the plants can adapt. So here these adaptations, it may be morphological, external or anatomical, it may be internal or physiological or reproductive. So here adaptations, it may be morphological adaptations, anatomical, internally, physiological, and also the reproductive. So here plants in general, they are classified on the nature of the substratum into different types by warming in 1898. So here the classification of the plants based on their nature of the substratum. That is, first one is the oxylophytes. That is the plants which are growing on the acid soils. So they are called as the oxylophytes. Halophytes, the plants which growing on the saline soils. So salty soil. So if the plants are growing on the saline soil, so they are called as the halophytes. And another one is the samophytes. Samophytes means the plants which growing on the sand. So generally here when we observe the plants, so they're growing in different areas or different substratums. So based on this, so here they're classified into different term. So here the lithophytes. So here the lithophytes means the plants which growing on the surface of the rocks. So they are called as the lithophytes. Chasmophytes. So another term, that is plants which growing on the crevices of the rocks. So they are called as the chasmophytes. So here we can observe the difference between these lithophytes and chasmophytes. So here the lithophytes, they are on the surface. Here the plants which growing on the surface, whereas in crevices of the rocks, surface of the rocks, that is lithophytes, and crevices of the rocks, they are called as a chasmophytes. So here based on the substratum, here warming classified plants into different types like auxilophytes. Auxilo means that is acid soil, the plants which growing on the acid soils. So they are called as the auxilo. Halophytes mean the plants which growing on the saline soils. And samophytes, that is the plants which growing on the sand. So they are called as the samophytes. And lithophytes, so the plants which growing on surface of the rocks, they are called as the lithophytes. And chasmophytes, the plants which growing on the crevices of the rocks. So we can clearly observe here surface and in the crevices. So next one is again here the plants are classified into based on the water relation. Again the plants are classified into three types mainly by warming in 1909. So here based on the water relation, hydrophytes, that is the plants which growing in and near the water body. So they are called as the hydrophytes. Xerophytes, that is the plants which are adapted to survive under very poor availability of water. That is xerophytes mean the plants which growing in the dry habitats. They are called as the xerophytes. So again xerophytes are again classified into many groups. We will discuss later. So next one is the mesophytes. Plants which growing in an environment which is neither very dry nor very wet. That is minimal condition. That is usual plants. That is mesophytes means they get minimum conditions of dry and water. Not very wet or not very dry. Minimal conditions. So here the classification based on the relation of water. Hydrophytes, xerophytes and mesophytes. Hydrophytes mean the plants which growing in water or near the water bodies. Xerophytes mean the plants which growing in dry habitats. And another one is the mesophytes. So they require minimum water. Like that is here, which can neither be very dry or nor very wet condition. So they are called as the mesophytes. So here the some of the examples here, hydrophytes and xerophytes, that is dry habitats, and mesophytes, minimum conditions. So here again, this xerophytes again based on the surface substratum. So again, these xerophytes are classified into different types by warming. So auxilo means the plants which growing on the acid soils. Halo, the plants which growing on the saline soil. Lithophytes, the plants which growing on the rocks. And samophytes, the plants which growing on the sand and gravel. And chersophytes, that is plants which growing on the wasteland. And eremophytes, so the plants which growing on the deserts, they are called as eremophytes. And psychrophytes, that is the plants which growing in the cold soil. And xylophytes, that is the plants growing on the savannas. And sclerophytes, the plants which growing on the forest and bushland. So they are called as the sclerophytes. So here again, xerophytes are classified into different types based on their substratum. So if the plants which growing on the acid soils, so they are called as auxilo. And saline soils, that is the plants which growing in saline soil, the halophytes. The plants, if the plant they're growing on the rocks, lithophytes. And if the plants they're growing on the sand and gravel, so they're called as the samophytes. And the plants which growing on the wasteland, they are called as the chersophytes. And eremophytes, that is the plants which growing on the deserts. And if the plants they're growing in the cold soils, they're called as the psychrophytes. And savannas, that is the plants which grow, xylophytes, they're called as the xylophytes, which plants which growing on the savannas. And sclerophytes, the plants which growing on the forest and bushland.
ప్రతి సిపి గెట్
So
లో
next one is the
ఇంతకుముందు
ecological
చెప్పిన మేడం గారు
adaptation of
చెప్పినటువంటి ప్రతి సిపి గెట్ లో ఈ క్వశ్చన్ వచ్చిందండి. సామోఫైట్స్, లిథోఫైట్స్, చెస్సోఫైట్స్, ఇలాంటి వాటికి సంబంధించి ప్రతి CPGET లో అండ్ CUET లో అడిగినటువంటి ప్రశ్న వెరీ సింపుల్ గా ఆక్సాలోఫైట్స్ అంటే ఏంటివి, హ్యాలోఫైట్స్ అంటే ఏంటివి, లిథోఫైట్స్ అంటే ఏంటివి, జీరోఫైట్స్ అంటే ఏంటివి, చెస్సోఫైట్, క్రయోఫైట్స్, సామోఫైట్స్, ఇలాంటివి ఇప్పుడు అకార్డింగ్ టు వార్మింగ్ ఏదైతే 1909లో మనకి ఇచ్చినటువంటి ఈ మొక్కలు ఎక్కడైతే పెరుగుతాయో దాని ఆధారంగా డెఫినెట్ గా ఇందులోకి వెళ్ళి ఒక బిట్ డెఫినెట్ గా ఈ 9 ఏవైతే మేడం గారు చెప్పారో ఈ 9 చెప్పారు ఈ 9లోకి వెళ్ళి డెఫినెట్ గా ఒకటి ఉంటుంది. ఇది విషయం మర్చిపోకండి, మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ బిట్స్. Madam, please proceed. Sorry for the disturbance.
No problem, sir. Okay, sir. So next one is the ecological adaptations